Hi, my name is Megan James, and I'm here to tell you that if you lose your pen, you're going to die. Pretty harsh, right? But give me a chance to explain to you why this is the case. So if you lose your pen, you won't be able to take notes. When you can't take notes, you won't be able to study. When you can't study, then you'll probably fail school. And when you fail school, you won't be able to get a job. When you can't get a job, you'll get impoverished. And then when you're impoverished, you'll get depression because of your situation. And when you're depressed, you're going to die. Yes, that escalated very, very quickly. But the real question is this actually realistic? If you lose your pen, will you really die? Probably not. But the reason that I showed this to you and explained this to you was not because I want you to worry or to hold on to your pens a little bit tighter, but because I want to explain to you an underlying theory behind all of this, which is called the domino effect. Now, defined by Cambridge Dictionary, the domino effect simply states a situation in which something, usually bad, happens, causing other similar events to happen. So they lost their pen and ended up dead with a series of events in between, triggering the next. But let's apply this to real life. So realistically, the domino effect can be seen in our everyday lives, and I'm going to give you a scenario that shows this. So if you wake up late, you're going to be rushing to get ready. When you're rushing to get ready, you're probably going to be late for school. And when you're late for school, you're probably going to fall behind a little bit. So if you wake up late, you're going to fall behind in school. Now, that sounds pretty realistic to me, if not kind of relatable. This kind of leads me to my thesis now. On a completely unrelated topic, it still has the same underlying theory of the domino effect. My idea is not just a series of random events that I pulled up to give you some kind of scenario, but it's actually a predicament that's going on in our world. So here's my thesis. The introduction and assimilation of GMO technology into common medicine inhibits natural selection, therefore contributing to environmental deterioration. So it's a lot, it's a mouthful, but I'm just going to start at the beginning with you. So genetically modified organisms, GMOs, are also called transgenic organisms. So most of you probably know what this term is or means, but I'm just going to give you a definition anyway, or explain this to you so that we all have the same kind of basis of knowledge. So basically, a genetically modified organism is an organism that possesses a gene from a different organism. So a gene is extracted from one organism and forced into a foreign organism. Now, these genes can come from bacteria, insects, animals, humans even, the way scientists do this is actually very complicated, as expected, but I'm going to try to explain it to you in the broadest, simplest way possible. So scientists use recombinant DNA for DNA stitching. And you may ask why somebody would do this. And there's actually many useful applications for this technology. So when they use it on crops, they can give a crop a certain trait or an advantageous quality where it could, in some cases, potentially, like if you have a crop, it could resist frost and be able to be used by a population. When you search it up, most sites, when you look up genetic modification, don't talk about humans, for the reason that it's sort of a new topic that's coming into the scientific world, and not many studies have been done using genetic modification on humans, yet it is still a thing, a possibility, something that is coming, growing. People are generally accepting of genetic modification of plants, but when it comes to human, it raises some serious ethical concerns. But let's get a little bit more depth in how this relates to humans. So there are two main types of interventions, you could say. There's somatic cell intervention and germline cell intervention. So they use different techniques to get the same result, but somatic cell intervention involves cells that aren't reproductive cells, while germline cells are reproductive cells, or involve them in the genetic modification process. So what can this do for humans, and why would we even want to do this? Well, it could potentially inevitably erase a child's inevitability to have a certain disease, such as Huntington's disease, with a parent with two dominant traits for this disease. Now, for those of you that don't know, Huntington's disease creates something called chorea. It's abnormal movements, and then also dementia comes along with this. And also, it could allow parents to change a genetic trait of their unborn child. So if my parents wanted me to have brown eyes instead of green eyes, this is a possibility. So, like I said before, GMOs pose certain ethical concerns, and you may even have some of your own, but I bet most of you have overlooked or not thought about the environmental impact that this could have, specifically on natural selection. So, according to a biology dictionary, natural selection is defined as a process in nature in which organisms possessing certain genotypic characteristics that make them better adjusted to an environment tend to survive, reproduce, and therefore are able to transmit their genotypic qualities to succeeding generations. So when you bring genetic modification to this, it is really no longer natural selection, but artificial selection. Because GMOs could potentially eliminate diseases which natural selection would usually take care of. For instance, there were experimental trials in 1990 that involved 2 girls with the disease called SCID. If you've watched the movie Everything, Everything, this is the disease that the girl had towards the beginning of the movie. So it was these 2 girls had bone marrow, or genes, genes were inserted into their bone marrow, and they were amazingly cured from having this disease. So even though it really is an amazing accomplishment, children with SCID, undiagnosed SCID, usually only live up to 2 years old. So at 2 years old, they would pass away. Now with GMOs, this would no longer be life-threatening and allow people to live up to and much past their reproductive years. So this is just one way that genetic modification is limiting natural selection. People really no longer will have advantageous qualities, as any diseases or malfunctions, mutations will be able to be treated with genetic modification. So this leads to a bigger idea. Now, natural selection is one of our most effective ways of population control, and we're essentially taking this away. So where is our population control now? And now this leads to so inhibiting natural selection, environmental deterioration, but before that we have overpopulation from the absence of natural selection. So it's not really a myth that someone has created about overpopulation. This is actually a thing, and it's actually occurring. So it is said that, well, if you figure the amount of resources that this world will have in 2100, the optimal amount of people on this earth would only be 2 billion people. And right now we have 7 billion people on this earth, and it is thought that by 2100 we will have 11 billion people on this earth. That is 9 billion more people than we should have, and this is according to the United Nations statistics. Now, we were at 2 billion people in 1927. Now, we have far surpassed that. In 1927, if you think about it, really wasn't that long ago. In the last 40 years, our population has doubled, and these are some pretty alarming statistics. A lot of mind-blowing things right there. But the last part of my thesis talked about environmental deterioration. And yes, we finally got there. So now, as you can see, our world is majorly overpopulated. And this comes with some serious repercussions. We have surpassed our world's carrying capacity by far. And this comes with a lot of problems. There's loss of fresh water, there's habitat destruction, there's species extinction, there's global warming, climate change. All of that comes with overpopulation. And so here's some more statistics for you. So only 1% of fresh water on Earth is actually readily accessible for human use. It is said by 2030 that certain regions, the demand for fresh water will be exceeded by supply by 50%. And some places right now are consuming water 10 times faster than we are able to supply it, which is a major, major water shortage. Now with habitat destruction, rainforests used to cover 14% of all land on Earth, and now they only cover 6% because building of homes and recreational areas for this overpopulation. And also, it is said that rainforests could be completely gone in the next 40 years, and within a few decades, nearly half of all plant and animal species will be completely extinct. With global warming, we are right now trying to reduce our carbon footprint, but with all these people, they're just contributing to it, so it's kind of countering the effects of everything we're trying to do. So we're already experiencing harsher storms and droughts, so we know that this is actually a problem and it's worsening. So we've covered every part of my thesis now, and like I said at the beginning of this, it's all one large domino effect. So assimilating GMOs, it inhibits natural selection. When you inhibit natural selection, you have overpopulation, and when you have overpopulation, you have environmental deterioration. So all this, like I said, all one large domino effect. So what does this all mean? Well, we have a large problem. And remember how in my first scenario we talked about how a pen led to death? Well, the idea and execution of GMOs began with a pen. Now, by this point, I'm sure we all know what happens next. Thank you.